Hello. Today we reveal a quiet pact in a living room. Four friends sit in a circle and enforce a strict rule. Confidences stay here until everyone agrees to disclose. A masquerade mask on the wall casts pale faces across the room, as if the room itself is listening. Maya faces a choice: reveal a diary secret or protect everyone with silence. The truth behind the ritual is chilled and dangerous, waiting to surface. Let's begin. Night pooled in the living room, a warm halo around the circle. The lamp hummed softly as the window framed the city's breathing lights outside. A masquerade mask hung on the wall, pale and carved, catching the lamp's glow and throwing a pale echo of faces across the room. Maya sat with her back straight, a cup cooling in her hands. The rules of trust had been spoken like a ritual. Confidences stay within the circle, unless all consent to disclosure. Tonight she hoped they'd keep faith with that promise. Jonah leaned forward, a half-smile that never quite reached his eyes. "We've all carried something we never dared say aloud," he said, almost casual. "If you're really with us, you'll test the trust and tell us your secret, Maya." Maya's throat tightened. The word secret felt as heavy as a stone in her chest. She could see the diary buried in her bag and the small ache of temptation to prove she belonged by bearing something that would bind them closer. She remembered Priya's steady, pragmatic gaze and Alex's calm silence, grounding the room in blunt honesty. Priya's voice cut through the tremor in Maya's chest. "We don't test loyalty with disclosures," she said softly. "We choose boundaries that protect everyone." She glanced at the mask, and a thin smile appeared, as if the symbol itself had turned to a reminder of what they were pretending to be. Alex nodded. "Maya doesn't owe us exposure to earn trust. She owes herself safety." His tone was even, a dampener on the rising ache of pressure. The room tightened, and the mask winked from the wall as if it breathed the unspoken. Jonah pressed a fraction longer, eyes bright with risk. "Say it then. If not, we'll know it's fear, not loyalty." Fear flickered, then a quiet, stubborn resistance. Maya met Jonah's gaze with a steadiness that surprised her. She set the cup down with deliberate care and spoke, not loud but certain. "Confidences stay here. What I choose to reveal on my own terms, and not as a test of belonging." Her voice lowered on the last words, a boundary drawn with the edge of a blade. For a heartbeat, the room held its breath. The mask's painted lips seemed to soften, and Priya breathed out slowly, while Alex offered a small, approving nod. The tension softened into something crowded and intimate, a space where truth and protection could coexist, if they chose it. Jonah's mouth pressed into a line, and then he released a sigh that didn't reach his eyes. "Okay," he said. "Okay." The word hung, not a surrender, but a recalibration. The circle settled into a careful quiet. The light grew sharper around the edges of the room, turning the mask on the wall from a mere decoration into a test of conscience. Maya felt a small, stubborn thread of relief loosen inside her. She had claimed her boundary without breaking the circle, without weaponizing her own vulnerability. Outside, the city never paused. Inside, the moment stretched, fragile as glass. The question lingered, unspoken but understood. Would the circle honor confidentiality when the time came to reveal? Or would the pressure of belonging drive them toward exposure they had promised to avoid? The question hovered as the lamp settled into a constellated glow, and the masked face on the wall seemed to watch, not to judge, but to remind. The night kept its breath, and so did Maya, choosing a path that felt harder but truer, to stay herself, to keep the promise of safety, and to watch how trust would bend when pressed, rather than snap. The scene closed on the stillness after the decision, the mask catching the light a final time, and the air asking the same unwon question, softly, endlessly. Will secrecy survive when truth is invited to breathe? Evening seeped through the window, turning the apartment into a careful hush. The circle sat close around the coffee table. Maya on the couch edge, Priya beside her, Alex in the chair, Jonah opposite. A ceramic mask rested on the table, pale and accusing, its hollow eyes catching the lamp. Jonah leaned forward, smiling too easily. I have something I need to own up to, the kind of thing that shifts a circle. He paused, the room waiting. I've used the vow of confidences as a tool. From today, nothing leaves this room without everyone's consent. If a confession threatens someone's boundary, we pause. Together. The room exhaled, some nodding, others tightening. The mask's pale face reflected the new, fragile light. A question hovered, unspoken. Can we guard each other without losing what drew us close? Outside, the city murmured. Inside, a choice hung in the air as the lamp dimmed. The living room feels crowded even when it's half empty. The couch cushions pressed into a semicircle, the lamp throwing a warm halo that doesn't quite warm the air. A shard of quiet sits between them, the only durable thing in the room. On the coffee table, a wine glass sits half full, its surface catching the light and throwing a crooked reflection across Maya's knuckles. Jonah's mouth works like a practiced safecracker. We don't have to pretend this didn't happen. I tested the circle's confidences. I want to know who still thinks secrecy is a shield. His tone is soft, almost affectionate, as if coaxing a frightened animal. He looks at Priya, then at Alex, as if asking permission to proceed. Priya, seated closer to the window, keeps her gaze level. The vow isn't a torch we carry to burn someone else's truth. It's a boundary. When a confession becomes bait, we don't pretend it's harmless. Her voice is practical, steady, the opposite of the tremor in Maya's chest. Alex leans forward, eyes calm but hard. Truth matters. But truth told at the wrong moment isn't truth. It's a weapon. If we're going to rebuild, we need guardrails. Honesty with care, not honesty at the cost of someone's safety or sanity. Maya watches the scene, as if from behind a glass plate door she can't quite reach. Her hands press into her knees, then loosen. Trust, that fragile, eager thing she's been chasing in this circle, slides from her grasp and climbs into her throat like a dry stone. Jonah's gaze shifts toward her, and there's a flicker of something almost apologetic, almost hungry. If we're all in, we can move past it. We can be bigger than this mistake. The room tightens. The light narrows. A tremor passes through the table, and the glass, too fragile to bear the weight of what just happened, shivers. One of the edges fans out into a fault line, and a thin crack runs across the surface, catching the lamp's glow. It's only a fragment, yet it feels like the whole circle's fracture pressed into a single moment. The symbol arrives uninvited, organic and brutal. Shattered glass, a quiet reminder that some truths cut when they fall. Maya's breath forgets to be steady, and for a heartbeat, she almost nods. Almost says yes to closure by smoothing things over, almost agrees to pretend the crack isn't there. Then she inhales, a long, careful breath, and looks at each face in turn, their familiar lines, their familiar bravado, the way desire to belong still glints in Priya's pragmatic eyes, the way Alex's calm refuses to surrender, the way Jonah's charm folds into a defense. I'm not here to police your loyalties, she says, her voice low, controlled, the word boundaries landing with the gravity of a door closing. But I am here to protect what's mine. My truth, my limits, my safety. If we are rebuilding this circle, we do it with clear rules. Confidences stay within the circle unless all parties consent to disclosure. If someone breaks that, the consequence isn't punishment so much as accountability and a redefined boundary. A weight shifts in the room. The debate loosens, then tightens again. The crack in the glass seems to answer for them, not with language but with the way it refracts the lamplight, the way it multiplies the room's warmth into a dozen tiny, brittle glints. So we choose, Maya adds, stepping closer to the table so that the shard between them is no longer a metaphor, but a reminder. We choose what to share, who to trust, and when to walk away. Her eyes linger on Jonah, then sweep to Priya and Alex. A question lingers in the air, unspoken and unanswerable. Will this circle keep the secrets it's asked to guard? And which boundary will Maya finally name as hers? The apartment felt smaller after the circle dissolved into the corridor's size. The kitchen light hummed, pale and patient, as if waiting for someone to say the hard thing first. Outside, a hush of voices drifted through the doorframe, a chorus of whispers that promised a map to every hidden thing they'd ever shared. Maya stood by the counter, her hands a little damp, listening to the rumor lengths that had left the room and swaggered into the hallway. Alex stood with his back to the door, weighing the air with that calm, stubborn gravity that had always steadied her when questions came too close. Priya leaned against the fridge, pragmatic and precise, her eyes narrowing as if she could slice through the blur of voices with a single glance. The mask on the shelf, a pale ceramic thing, half hidden by a passing shadow, caught Maya's gaze. It wasn't theirs, not really, but it hung there like a reminder. We all wear some face to keep the night from getting in. Whispers don't stay in the circle, Alex said softly, the tremor he tried to mask slipping into the corners of his mouth. We can ride out the storm, or we can anchor it here with rules. Priya's mouth softened, not toward comfort, but toward truth. Rules won't fix personal fury. They'll only buy time. We need a boundary that protects the people who aren't here to defend themselves. Maya felt a breath she hadn't realized she was holding slip away. The confession had been a test, she thought. One of those tests that promised belonging if you passed and punished you if you didn't. Her fingers found the edge of the counter, then paused, as if the surface could hold her like a witness to her own trembling. The whispers outside intensified, not loud but knowing, like someone whispering your name from behind a closed door. Secrets are not a shield, Priya continued. They're a weight you carry until they crush you or you learn to carry them together with care. Maya pressed her hands to the cool granite. A small, almost domestic rebellion against the knot in her chest. The mask's image sharpened in her mind. The way they'd worn it to belong. The way it hid the tremor in their voices when someone asked for honesty and got a storm instead. If she let the mask drop now, would the room still recognize her? Or would it dissolve into what everyone wanted to pretend? She found a thread of courage in the hollow of her throat and spoke. Soft but exact. We are not a circle to be breached with a rumor like a blade. We define what stays in this room and what we share only if we all agree. No exceptions based on who's outside the door. Alex met her eyes, and for a moment the air thickened with risk. That's a choice, he said, not a rule. He glanced at Priya, who nodded as if to say, yes, but with numbers and timing. The whispers pressed closer to the door, as if listening in. Maya's breath steadied. The truth rattled along her ribs, not gentle but bearable, if she claimed it with intention. The dominant move was hers to make, to reauthor the space before it dissolved into rumor. to name the boundary that would keep their shared fragile warmth from turning to ash. "I'm not asking you to forget," she said, voice steadier now, a line drawn in light. "I'm asking you to guard what we agree to guard. If someone outside asks for more, we say we'll answer together, or not at all. If something hurts someone else, we pause. If we want to trust again, we choose how and when." A tense breath moved across the room. The mask glowed faintly on the shelf, a quiet emblem that they could keep wearing or finally set aside. The three of them stood in a breath of new air, the kind that follows a storm's turning point. The door clicked, the hallway exhaled, and the whispers dimmed, as though listening to a new rhythm being learned inside. Maya watched the glass of the cabinet tremble, and for a moment she imagined the rumors already bending toward honesty. Not the blunt, damaging truth of a breach, but the careful, chosen truth of a boundary respected. Outside, a syllable drifted down the hallway, then another, and the room settled into a tense, cautious calm. The question lingered, unsolved and necessary. Could this circle hold the line between confidentiality and true closeness, without tearing apart the trust that still mattered? The living room hums with a quiet night and the city's distant pulse. A warm lamp pools amber on the coffee table, where a single red thread lies, coiled like a fragile ribbon of resolve. Maya sits on the edge of the couch, hands fidgeting. Alex leans at the kitchen island, calm and steady as a lighthouse. Priya sits opposite, eyes soft but awake, as if listening to the room's breath. The night's confession still sits between them, unspoken, tugging at the air. The rumor mill outside has already gnawed at a few edges. Inside, the circle looks for a map to navigate the wreckage. Maya breathes. The thread on the table glints. She doesn't touch it yet. Priya speaks first, careful but firm. "We're not built to carry secrets that aren't ours to carry. The line, our line, has to be clear." She lifts a small red thread from her sleeve and slides it toward Maya. "This is a reminder. Consent, boundaries, safety, not a tether." Alex nods, his tone even. Truth matters, but so do timing and care. We can be honest without weaponizing what someone didn't authorize. He looks at Maya, and for a heartbeat his eyes say, "You're not alone." A voicemail chimes somewhere beyond the room, a whispered clue of what's leaking. Maya flinches at the thought of what she might be asked to reveal. The pressure thickens, a weight pressing from all sides, the need to belong, the fear of judgment, the ache of being seen and then misread. Maya meets Priya's gaze, then Alex's. The red thread warms against her skin when she touches it. A tiny, stubborn flame of choice. "I'm not here to collect more secrets," she says. Voice steadier than she expected. "I'm here to decide what I owe to myself and to you all, and that means limits." Her words land with a soft, clear thud. The room tightens, as if the walls themselves lean in to hear. "Then start with one rule," Priya says gently. "What can we talk about only with consent? What stays outside the circle unless everyone agrees to bring it in?" Maya feels the pressure shift, now directed toward a choice rather than a threat. The fear of exposure recedes just enough to let a thin line of courage through. She looks at the red thread again, at her own wrist where it would rest if she accepted the symbol. We can't pretend every crack in our lives must stay private forever. But we can decide when to open a door and who's allowed to step through. Alex's mouth quirks in a small smile. "That's a map, Maya, not a prison." She breathes, counts to 5, and says it. "From now on, I share only what I choose, with who I choose, and only when I'm ready. If something is not mine to tell, I won't. If I'm asked to carry a truth that harms someone else, I'll refuse. And yes, I'll tell you if I'm ready to talk about it. The room exhales. The red thread at Maya's wrist tightens once, then loosens. An unspoken vow curling into the air. Alex reaches forward, resting a hand over her own in a pledge of support. Priya rises slowly and places a palm on Maya's shoulder. The tension doesn't vanish. It settles into something more manageable, a boundary that can be honored or crossed. The night loosens around them, the lamp's glow softening into something almost tender. Outside, a window glints with neon, and inside, a question hovers, unspoken and ringing clear. Can trust survive the new rules, if the truth is guarded with care? The question stays, hanging in the stillness, as if suspended on the red thread itself. The apartment hums with the aftermath of a confession that still smells like coffee and fear. A red thread lies across the table, its weave bright against the muted wood. A fragile flag in a field of chatter. Maya sits facing Priya and Alex. Jonah is there too, a specter at the edge, the weight of the past thick in the air. Maya leans in, the room narrowing to the heat of this moment. "We need a boundary," she says, and the word lands like a tap on glass. No more weaponized vulnerability, no more secrets that map a line from me to you and back again. She taps the thread. "This is our line." Alex studies her, serious and calm. "Truth matters, Maya, but timing and care matter more." His voice is even, the way a judge says, "Order." He doesn't look at Maya so much as through the idea she's building. Priya nods, eyes bright with resolve. "We can be honest without tearing people apart. We can spell out what belongs to the circle and what doesn't." She glances at Jonah, then back to Maya. Accountability is a kindness if it's spoken with care. Jonah shifts, the room tightening around him. "Loyalty is how we protect each other," he says, a smoke wisp of defiance curling from his lips. "Secrets aren't weapons. They're shields." He meets Maya's gaze, trying to pin her into the old hers and ours that once felt safe. Maya's fingers wrap around the red thread, twisting it gently as if to test its strength. Not all shields protect. She lays her palm flat on the table, and the thread follows, a thin path between her and them. Starting now, this pact. Confidences stay inside unless everyone consents to disclosure. Truth-telling happens, but with a rhythm, timed, agreed, and never at the expense of someone's dignity. The room thickens with breath and heat. Priya's mouth tightens. "That means you won't come to me with something about someone else and pretend it's for us all." She looks at Alex, steady, not hostile, and adds, "We fix breaches, not breed more fear." Alex's jaw tightens, then eases. "We'll test it. We'll see who forgives the process and who insists on the old circle." He holds Maya's gaze a heartbeat longer before nodding, a scholar conceding to the argument. Jonah's laugh is low, almost musical, then cuts. "This is a road, not a shield," he says, eyes flicking between Maya and Priya. "If you make a rule that blocks what people feel, you'll mute them." He leans back, crossing his arms, waiting for the weather to change. The red thread catches the lamplight as Maya slides it toward the center of the table, knotting it into a simple circle around the centerpiece glass. Her voice softens, almost careful. "If you break this circle, you're breaking trust itself. If you refuse this boundary, you're choosing to stay loyal to the old danger." She doesn't shout, but the air shifts anyway, a door closing softly upon the past. Silence braids through the room, the sort that makes a person hear what they're afraid to admit. Then Priya reaches forward, uncurls a second thread from her own wrist, delicate, uncoiled, and links it with Maya's. "Let the thread be a reminder," she says, "not a punishment." Her eyes sweep the table, landing on Jonah, who nods once, barely perceptible. The tension remains, a heartbeat behind their words. The question hangs: can this circle hold when loyalty splits into factions, when truth and protection pull in opposite directions? The stems of relationships tilt toward different futures, and the room seems to hold its breath, patient and wary. Maya meets the question with a steadiness that isn't victory, but ownership. "We'll test the boundaries with care," she says, voice steadier than she feels. "We'll give trust a safer path." She glances at the red thread, then at the others. Every line of her body a decision to stay and be seen without becoming a secret story that hurts someone else. The city outside continues, opaque and indifferent. The thread glows a little brighter in the lamplight, a small, stubborn beacon. And in the hush after Maya's vow, the room exists in a fragile balance, belonging and self-respect, walking the same narrow line. Can they preserve confidentiality and accept boundaries without destroying trust? The room compresses as the doors sigh open and a gust of cold city air slips in. The cafe hum drops to a tremor, steam swirls above cups like breath held too long. Maya sits in the circle with her hands flat on the table, the red thread around her wrist catching the dingy light. A whispered confession, meant to bind the group tighter, has become a weapon in Jonah's palm. And the air thickens with the scent of coffee and danger. Jonah stands a fraction too close to the edge of the couch, eyes bright with the thrill of disruption. We all know Maya's been sharing, right? Not just with us, with whoever's listening. His voice coils through the room, loud enough to wound, but not enough to fully expose. Laughter scrapes the room's edges, then dies. Priya's lips tighten, Alex's jaw tenses, the others lean in, hungry for a scoop that can tether them to something real. The confessional seed sprouts into a public thorn. Someone wonders aloud about a detail that belonged to a private circle, and the circle tilts toward rumor, toward the easy lie that keeps the heat off. Maya feels the pressure gather in her chest, not from aggression, but from the ache of being seen in a way she never consented to. The truth she wished to guard, not about one person, but about the entire space they call trust, presses against her ribs, stubborn as a second skin. Her gaze flicks to Priya, to Alex, to the red thread on her wrist. The symbol sits there like a quiet pact. Secrecy kept, boundaries unspoken, trust earned by restraint. She slides the thread from her skin, places it on the table as if laying down a line in the sand. The color bleeds into the wood, a stubborn ribbon of warning, and a claim. "I'm not your vessel for someone else's secrets," Maya says, soft but carved from ash. Confidences stay within this circle unless all parties consent to disclosure. And disclosure is not a weapon. It's a choice. The words travel the room, each syllable a careful step away from complicity toward accountability. Jonah's mouth twists, a counterfeit smile hovering on his lip. "That's convenient, Maya. Since when do boundaries apply to the truth you want to tell?" He gestures as if presenting a trophy, yet the gesture circles back to him, the one who weaponized a confession in the first place. Alex leans forward, steady and calm. Truth-telling matters, but timing and care matter more. We don't owe each other every innermost detail. His eyes search Maya's, a quiet vow to stand with her if she chooses to push back, to hold the line when it becomes almost unbearable to do so. Maya feels the room exhale, the dynamics rethreading themselves around her decision. The choice, not just to confront, but to redefine what loyalty means in this space. The red thread lies on the table, a visible boundary, a reminder of what was supposed to bind them and what must now bind her to herself. She looks at each face in turn. Jonah's smirk is a mask that peels away when the mask slips. Priya's empathy is a stubborn anchor. Alex's gravity is the calm center that won't let the flood wash away boundaries. Her voice steadies, not loud, but unshakable. If we keep pretending secrets are love, we'll hollow out what brought us here. If we keep sharing without consent, we're not honest. We're careless. I want honesty with protection. I want belonging that doesn't cost me my voice. The table seems to tighten, the red thread catching a lamp's flare and snapping it into sharper color. A silence grows, dense and deliberate, as if the room itself is listening for the thread's next tremor. Jonah finally lowers his gaze, the bravado draining, leaving a thin line of doubt. Priya reaches out, not to argue but to anchor the moment with tenderness, and Alex nods once, decisive. The circle shifts, not dissolving, but reconfiguring around a line drawn with care. The air, once so tense it hurt to breathe, lightens just enough to reveal what remains. Trust tested, boundaries drawn, a path forward that includes some, excludes others, and asks to be earned anew by every future choice. And the question lingers, heavy and unresolved. Can they keep the truth and still keep each other safe, when the truth itself has redrawn the circle? The kitchen light pooled warm amber across the island as Maya slid the locked diary toward the center, its brass latch catching the glow and turning it into a small sun. Alex watched, calm and intent, Priya leaning in with that quiet, observant tilt of hers. The circle had gathered here, after a confession had ricocheted through the room and left everyone listening for the right word to say. From today, we stopped treating this as a vault, Maya said, her voice steady, the fear that had lived under her chest easing just enough for breath. My story isn't a background beat for our loyalty. If we want honesty, we start with consent. She touched the diary's surface lightly, as if stroking the hinge between truth and consequence. No more secrets about me stay in circulation unless I approve the next move. A murmur moved along the line of shoulders. Alex's gaze was soft but unyielding. Boundaries are how we keep trust from rotting, he said. Your boundary is our anchor, Maya. We'll meet it with respect. Priya sat forward, hands clasped, her eyes alert but not judgmental. Truth told with care is still truth, she replied. We don't need to weaponize your past to feel close. We can choose what to share and when. It's not censorship, it's protection. For you, for us. A clock ticked. The room felt smaller, the city outside pressing through blinds like frail wings. Someone, the edge of a chair, a dropped word, faltered. A soft resistance rose in the air, the old fear that belonging means keeping a circle's secrets intact. The confession had been weaponized once. The fear of losing ties again pressed in, a hungry thing. Maya's eyes found each face in turn, searching for the trace of the girl who believed secrets could forge intimacy. The diary's lock clicked shut with a quiet, almost ceremonial sound, a tangible symbol of a boundary drawn in metal and memory. She set the diary down with a careful push, the lid resting over a page that would stay blank for now. This is the line, she said, voice catching just a fraction, then steadier, between what others think I owe them and what I owe myself. Alex reached out, not to pull her back, but to affirm. He placed a hand over hers, then slid it away, as if to give her space to decide. If the circle chooses loyalty over truth, that's their choice. We'll walk our path with you, he said, a practical edge in his tone. We'll speak up when something crosses your boundary, and we'll listen when you say no." Priya nodded, a quiet firmness blooming. "Let's reframe belonging as a bond built on consent, not concealment," she suggested. "If we trust you to own your narrative, we must trust each other to respect the parts you don't reveal and the parts you do." She paused, letting the words settle. "We'll go slow where it hurts, and we'll speak plainly where it helps." The room held. The tension didn't vanish, but it leaned, as if listening for the right step. Maya felt the fear loosen its grip just enough to anchor a decision. "I'm not asking you to erase the past," she said, softer now, gripping the counter's edge with a deliberate calm. "I'm asking you to honor the future I choose to tell." A silence settled, heavier than before. Then a cautious breath from Priya. "We'll adapt," she said, her voice even. "You don't owe us anything we didn't consent to hear." She looked at Maya with something almost like relief. Maya met the gaze, noticing the tremor in her own hands fade into a quiet, stubborn certainty. She stood taller, not loud, but undeniable. "Then let's decide together what stays inside and what gets shared, and when. My history isn't a hostage. It's mine to command." The challenge in her voice was a new kind of fire, the metal of a door with a fresh hinge. The locked diary remained on the table, a constant reminder of control reclaimed. Outside, the city kept its pulse. Inside, the circle shifted, boundaries redrawn, loyalties tested, and the first tentative shape of trust reforged in the heat of choice. As they rose to leave, the question hovered in the air, unspoken but heavy. Can Maya hold this line without breaking the fragile trust they're learning to rebuild? The room is a fist of warmth and low light, the city humming through the window behind them. Maya stands in the center, the locked diary resting on the coffee table like a small, heavy moon. Her fingers brush the metal lock. It gleams, then settles back into dull, patient shadow. "I've been quiet long enough," she says, voice even but not unsteady. "We need ground rules about what we share and when we share it." Her eyes pass over each face, naming the moment's gravity with nothing more than a breath. Jonah leans back, a casual shrug tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Rules now? Feels a little like you're policing vibes, May." His tone is light, but the room tightens. Priya meets Maya's gaze with that calm pragmatism she wears like a shield. "If we're going to call this honesty, it has to be safe for everyone. Consent isn't a chorus line, it's the whole song." Alex sits forward, serious as a judge, but not unkind. "Honesty is a tool, not a weapon. We can tell the truth without weaponizing it. We can hold each other accountable." Maya meets their eyes in turn, then looks down at the diary again. The lock is a small, stubborn sun. "From this moment, we decide what to disclose and to whom. If something is mine to speak, I'll speak it here, with everyone's consent, and only when a boundary is clear." She slides a folded sheet from her pocket, the first draft of a new rule she never planned to write. The words are simple. No sharing outside this room without unanimous agreement. No disclosing a confidence's content that would harm someone. No using someone's truth as a weapon. The words hang, pale and precise, like a hinge ready to bear weight. The circle shifts. Priya nods slowly. Alex breathes in and out, steady as a lighthouse in fog. Jonah's jaw tightens. He tries a sharper smile, then a glimmer of rebellion passes over his face. "So we cage ourselves with rules? That's not loyalty, that's fear." Maya's hands flatten on the table, nails catching the light. Loyalty without boundaries isn't loyalty. It's loyalty to a secret we pretend protects us. She lifts the diary and places it back on its padlock pedestal, a quiet, stubborn monument. This lock isn't to trap secrets. It's to remind us who owns our stories. Silence, thick as velvet, broken only by a distant car horn and the clock ticking. The tension on Jonah's shoulders eases into a wary acceptance. Priya's eyes soften. Alex nods. The room breathes differently now, warmer, but not naive. The first move is made, and the circle shifts around it. Some stay, some drift, some adapt. Maya's breath steadies. Her stance is unshakable, her voice a clear line in the air. I claim my own history, she says, and I'm choosing safety and truth, not belonging at any cost. She glances at the diary, then toward the door of the apartment, as if confirming a new exit and entrance in the same room. Can trust be rebuilt when you choose your own boundaries? The question lingers, unfinished, as the light tilts and the night begins to press at the window. Maya stands in the glow of the kitchen light, the circle of friends stretching around the sofa as if drawn by a single breath. On the coffee table gleams a small brass lock, the locked diary resting beneath it, like a patient argument waiting to be settled. She lifts her chin, meets each gaze with a steadier look than she feels. We need to talk about boundaries, she says, voice even, but not quiet. Tonight, we decide what stays inside this circle and what doesn't. Her eyes drift to the diary, its lid catching the lamp, spinning a sharp reflection across the room. Jonah leans back, a lazy smile curving his mouth. Boundaries? Maya, you sound like you're locking the door on us. Priya's jaw tightens, almost imperceptibly. Truth isn't a prison if we choose when and how to tell it. Alex meets Maya's look with calm. Honesty is essential, but timing and respect are not optional. Maya exhales, the word choosing her as much as she chooses the word. Her fingers hover over the diary, then press the lid shut with a soft click that slices the room's hum in two. The sound feels like a hinge turning inside her, stubborn and decisive. This diary stays locked, she says, and the words surprise her with how they settle, almost light, almost dangerous. Her throat tightens, a tremor she tries to swallow. Not to punish or to hide, but to protect. To decide what I owe to you and what I owe to myself. She feels the old fear, belonging slipping through her fingers if she speaks, if she refuses to speak too much. But she keeps talking anyway. Confidences stay within the circle unless everyone consents to disclose. No more weaponized truths, no more rumors dressed as loyalty. The air tightens. The room tightens with it. Jonah scoffs, low and quick. Priya's eyes widen with a practiced softness. Alex nods, slow and deliberate, as if weighing every syllable before it lands. Then we need a ground rule, Priya says, soft but sure. Consent before disclosure, and a harm check before any truth is told that could hurt someone else. Maya turns a page in her mind, feels the weight of the burden she shouldered alone and now shares. And we keep a shared document. What's allowed to travel beyond these walls? Who holds the key? Who can ask for access? The diary is the symbol, not a weapon anymore. The diary sits closed, its lock gleaming like a watchful eye. A moment passes, the kind that isn't a pause, but a decision arriving. Maya's chest loosens, not with ease, but with the hard-won right to stand firm. Choice is my current dominant mood, she says, and the word lands like a small but clear bell in the room. I choose safety over knocking down walls for the sake of belonging. I choose to author what I reveal and when, with care for you as it would have been cared for me. A beat of breath, a tremor in Jonah's mouth that could be annoyance or fear or something closer to respect. Alex's calm steadies the others. Priya nods slowly, almost relieved, almost wary. The rules are spoken aloud now, not whispered in the margins of conversations. The circle shifts, gravity rebalanced. Some faces soften, others harden, learning the look of concern without surrendering to the old circle's gravity. The door into the night outside remains visible through the window, a reminder that belonging isn't a trap, but a choice repeated in every small sentence spoken hereafter. The locked diary, now a steady emblem, rests between their hands as much as in Maya's heart. And still, as the lamplight pools on the table, a question lingers, unspoken and stubborn. Can trust survive when the truth is guarded by consent? When safety must become the currency of closeness?